Not
Let's
yet,
check it
no.
online. You're
Yes.
there on the stage, right? You will go out to the stage later, right?
I can go off whenever, or I can stay.
Yeah, you stay. I want you to
Okay.
stay.
All right.
Are we live?
Yes, we are live. I'm sure there is a lag of about 15 seconds, but we should be live any moment.
Yeah, sure. We'll just wait for some time for people to join, and then we take our inaugural ISO 27001 by no one other than Shubhajit. Na? All right. In the meantime, people join. Let's keep the channel open. Okay. I guess we are live now.
Yes, we're live on LinkedIn.
Okay. So we'll wait for people to join, and then great. Right. Okay. I guess people have started joining. We will wait for like 2 minutes, and then move ahead with today's webinar. Right. So people are still joining, and the moment we touch 20, maybe we'll start. And this is streaming live on YouTube also, right, Ghazal?
Right, sir.
Great. So good evening, everyone. We'll just wait for 2 minutes, and then we will introduce our brand new course, which I'm going to take personally, which is the ISO 27001-2022 Lead Implementer and GRC Analyst course. Well, why did I design this course? Because of course we had earlier mentor Love Johar. Love Johar has started his own venture, and wishing him all the best for his new venture. And so there was a minor void, and said, right, let's jump in. I just implemented two ISO 27001-2022 back to back, right, for our clients. So I guess with that practical experience, I thought, let me handle this course for the first time. Right. So we have crossed our threshold limit, and then I will start with today's proceedings. It's been a hectic day, but nonetheless, it's always great fun to be live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and teach as much as possible. So we are launching our ISO 27001-2022 Lead Implementer and GRC Specialist course. I'll be your lead mentor, and I'll also be taking a lot of questions. I'll be covering a lot of ground in today's session itself to make you understand what is ISO 27001, what is an ISMS, and how to implement an ISMS. Right. So that would be my main goal, to make you all understand this very, very important framework. Now, why ISMS? Why ISO 27001? What is the ISMS, right? So if you are experienced enough, great, that would be a good call. But today in the industry, there is a lot of demand for implementing a information security management system. So the first question is, what is a management system, right? So let's just wait a second. There's a tech glitch, and here we go. Right, there is a minor tech glitch. Just a second, guys. So the screen has frozen, so we will just take 2 minutes and be back. Yeah, there we are. There we go. Awesome. Right. So what is this course? Who's this course for, right? So this course is for someone who wants to gain practical skills. That's very clear. I would be providing a lot of practical skills on how to implement a ISMS for any organization, whether uh, you are in a uh, fintech environment, finance environment, healthcare environment. This is a universal framework which you can implement and then build upon your governance, risk management, and compliance on top of this. Uh, you know, very very clear, you know, uh, framework which is looks easy to implement, but once you start implementing it, there comes a lot of challenges. Right. So let's first understand what is a information security management system. Now, information security management systems completely, is focused on how to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of assets which are classified as information assets. So, what are information assets, right? Now, information assets and cyber assets or cyber security, there is a great difference. Now, many of you, unknowingly use the term information security and cyber security together. Please don't do that. What is information security? Information security is a very large, you know, umbrella. It's a large umbrella under which one aspect is cyber. Then there is electronic warfare. There is int based warfare. Now, these are all terminologies which have been derived over the last, thousands of years, right from Kautilya and Chanakya and various other, spy-based warfares which have evolved over the last, decades of human evolution. The cyber warfare today, or cyber security, or cyber warfare, whatever you want to call it, is just one subset of your information security, because today information rides on your cyber domain, right? And that cyber domain relies on internet infrastructure, communication, and a lot of other things, right? So please be very careful when you use the term information security and cyber security. Now, there in information security you have media warfare also, or media security also. You also have uh, you know psychological warfare, right? But all this today can actually be done through the medium of cyber. So therefore, people at time, confuse information security with cyber security. Now, cyber is just one domain of overall information security, because information security deals with people, processes, and technologies, right? And cyber is just one part of the technology, right? So therefore, once we talk about information and cybersecurity, favorite question, if I go for interview, I generally ask people, okay, what do you mean by information and cybersecurity? There are candidates who, at times mix it up. So what is a management system, right? A management system is a defined set of processes which you can deploy in your organization to manage the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your people, process, and technology involved in securing your information. Right? That's a definition which I just told you. Right? It's a process which combines people, the processes involved in information management, and technologies to secure your environment. Right? Now, why do organizations need it? Right? One of the major part is today most of your critical systems you need to protect. Now, if you want to protect your critical systems, how do you identify what's critical for you? Do you have the capability to identify what is your critical system? Okay. And that critical system, how do you identify how critical it is? And from there, somewhere down the line comes risk management. Because before risk management, what will come is asset identification. What is it that you are trying to protect? Now, once you go into the asset identification process, this is where you will find out what's critical for you and what's not critical for you. Okay. So you have to find what's critical. What is it that can bring your systems down, your organization laid vulnerable to attacks, whether cyber, whether people attacks, whether process attacks, or whether technological attacks, where we talk about cyber attacks. Now today we need to manage information security risks. Okay, why? You manage something when the problem statement is very large. If I had just two risks, okay, do I need to manage it? That's the question. So because there are so wide risks in how you build software, what kind of technology you use for communication, whether the application has MFA or not. If there is no MFA, then there will be a risk. So can you identify your systems which can help you manage this information security risks, right? The regulatory and legal compliance is increasing today. Go to any country, right? If you want to go to India, we have SEBI CSCRF rolling, RBI cybersecurity policy rolling, cybersecurity framework rolling. Europe has come heavily on privacy requirements. US already had HIPAA. Now EU is harping so much on DORA, resiliency framework, digital operational resiliency framework. So we are all talking about resiliency now. We have moved from security to resiliency. What do you mean by resiliency? Resiliency means the capability to take a hit and then again come back, right? Therefore, today ISMS becomes a very, very important framework to firstly secure your organization and then have the capability to get back from a disaster, right? Therefore you deploy a information security management system. Now these are the most likely questions which will be asked to you in any interview. If I am an interviewer and I'm going to hire you for a lead implementer, okay, or an auditor, these are the questions I'm going to ask you. Why do you think we will deploy an ISMS? These are the reasons, right? Therefore it improves business resilience. Okay? Resilience today is a major factor in capability to respond to so many threats, so many unknown territory, charter of territories. I'm doing this implementation for a client, huge client, spread over multi-regional, to understand how they have incorporated softwares, enterprise IT, cloud-based resources. The footprint is so large. To identify that footprint itself is a very major task, right? And that is made simple by a framework such as ISO 27001, right? Now, reputation and customer confidence is very important. Today, majority of organizations are going for the certification because they want to prove it to their customers that we follow very standardized processes, industry based processes to keep our environment secure. We're going to secure our data. We're going to secure your critical processes. If I'm buying a SaaS software from someone, I should be able to trust that organization, right? So that becomes a very important part of today's business environment. And cost efficiency. If you deploy a management framework well in time, you will not be running behind in case there is an outage or an attack. So therefore it optimizes your cost. It can give you visibility to what your risks are, and then apply controls to the risks, right? Now, is ISO 27000 a effective ISMS framework? Now, please understand, ISO 27001 is not the only framework for managing information security. We have NIST SP 853. We have COBIT. We have ISACA Risk IT framework. Okay, we have SAPSA Enterprise framework. We have multiple frameworks which we can incorporate to deploy information security, right, or enterprise risk to an organization. Now, why ISO 27001 comes as a very effective ISMS or a management system framework is because firstly it's very evolved. Okay, earlier it was known as British Standard 7799, which was later upgraded to ISO 27001. Now, if you look at BS 7799, it is one of the earliest, or in fact the first standard to manage information security of an organization. And if you see majority of frameworks like NIST, COBIT, ISACA, RISC-IT, SAPSA, they all ride over ISO 27001, and they make it much more, they incorporate more. Having implemented ISO 27001 for almost now 20 years, earlier 25 years, earlier we were implementing BS 7799. So when I was in the armed forces, BS 7799 was our Bible to implement. And every time we move places, like I'm commanding one unit, 2 years, then go to a new unit, again implement there. So if you see in a way, I've implemented almost 10 GRC frameworks based on 7799 and ISO 27001, 2013, and now 2022. It has crossed upwards of 15 implementations in last around 25 years, right? So I speak from that experience that yes, it's a very good framework to implement very clear demarcations of how to carry out risk management, asset identification, delegating roles and responsibilities, creating processes, and creating a very well knit, ruggedized framework which, if followed properly, gives you very matured governance, risk management, and compliance processes. Right, so it's a very structured framework, as I told you, and it gives you very clear guidance what you need to do. It does not guide you that you have to do it. It tells you, it gives you a framework. Now, what is the thing about framework? If you study frameworks are, as it say, it's framework. You need to scope it, and then you need to tailor it. So what do you mean by scoping and tailoring? You bought a piece of cloth, right? Now, whether you want to stitch a cloth for a woman or a man is the scope. Okay, so who's the target segment, whether there's a man or a woman, and based on then you take the measurements and tailor it to fit whether it's a man or a woman. Similarly, you take a framework, you understand where is it applicable, and then cut it to suit your need, and that is called tailoring. Now, this is a very well asked question in CISSP also. What is the scoping and what is tailoring? And I have asked such fundamental questions in interviews, and I found people not able to tell what is scoping and what is tailoring. Now, when you implement ISO 27001, you have to define very clear roles and responsibilities. Who is going to do what, right? Who's going to do what? It's it needs to be mentioned or defined very clearly. So it puts onus on the management, on the organization, to name who is going to do what. Okay, and then finally is to improve the processes. It's a reiterative process. You have to plan, do, check, act, again plan, do, check, act, and therefore it is called a PDCA cycle. Plan for doing something, do it, check whether it's working correctly, and act on any non-conformities which have arisen from the previous steps. Right, now it's very important for not only in information security, in any kind of a security matter, which is security is a roadblock. Please understand, security is a kind of a roadblock. It prevents people from doing their task easily. Therefore, as security professionals, it's very important that you convey security requirements in a very subtle manner to the business organizations or people who are making the business, right? So therefore, you have to integrate this entire process with the alignment of the business. And how to do that is what I am going to teach in this course. Now, once you do ISO 27001, now why ISO 27001 is now in so much of demand? It's not that it was not in demand 5 years back. When I came out of the army, the first thing I gave an interview for a UK company, and the first thing they asked us, how much time will you take to get ISO 27001 LI certified? I said 5 days, right? So that was the demand then. It's the demand now, right? Now, best practices is what we adopt in the 93 controls which are given in Annex A. So what happens is there's an annexure to the main document. At the end, it says if you deploy these 93 controls, more or less, your organization will have good enough security, right? Security can never be 100%, but that doesn't restrict you from only using 93 controls. You can add ISO 27017, 27018. You can add controls from 27701. Nobody stops you. It's a very open framework. There are no restrictions on the framework. You can adopt to the framework the way you want. You can incorporate controls from 20 to 301 and make this list as long as possible, right? But only thing is, you have to find out whether these controls are applicable to your organization or not, and that's called, statement of applicability. Now, how does this help in developing a management system? Now, what ISO does is, ISO is an organization with 134 participating countries. That means specialists from these 134 participating countries, including India, UK, and majority of the countries, they come, get together, and create a framework. It's a standardized framework. Once you implement it, it's going to be the same all across the world. There are not going to be changes, right? You know that if this organization is ISO 27001 certified and this another company in healthcare is ISO 27001 certified, you know the processes are going to fit. So it gives you that standardization. Now, because it gives you that standardization, even if you change your profession from one company to the other, you grow into your roles, the standard is going to remain the same. It's not going to change, right? Now, today, information security is very, very important, right? Today, it's a very critical requirement. Compliances are increasing. Look at how compliances are overgrowing in India. We have SEBI, cybersecurity resilience framework. We have RBI cybersecurity framework. We have DPDP, standing on our head, and there is going to be a lot of compliances slowly and steadily coming on your head, and it's very important for you to know. Now, one of the best part about ISO is you can take ISO framework and you can take any compliance and map the compliance on top of your ISO. That becomes one of the major flexibility of this framework, and therefore it helps you in maturing your compliance requirements, right? Reputation is increased the moment client sees that you're ISO 27001 certified. What they do is, okay, they have established processes. All they need to do is check out your documentation, carry out a document review, and have trust in your processes. So it's process driven and it's documentation driven, but that doesn't mean you have to make thousands of documents. If you look at the total number of documents actually which is required mandatorily, it's just around 10. Nobody tells you more than that. What happens is people interpret it that for everything there has to be a documentation. No, for everything there has to be a process, not necessarily a process documentation. What you need is a process evidence. So if I tell you, do you have access control? How do you say that you have access control? So you say, oh, we just maintain an Excel sheet for access control. Like in our organization, we're a small company, we're just 20 people. We don't need a PAM or a PIM solution. We maintain our access control on an Excel sheet. So Guzzle maintains the access control for physical devices. There's another person who maintains access control for logical applications. So it's nothing to do with technology. It's all to do with, processes. Business continuity. Now, business continuity today is a very, very major requirement because of ransomware attacks, because of network denial of service attacks, network availability, cloud data centers going down. Your business might suffer a prolonged outage. And do you have that consideration for that risk in your assessment? That's very, very important. Therefore, business continuity also today becomes a very, very important part of overall information security process. Now, framework gives you a very, very structured approach. As I told you, a framework gives you a very structured approach. You don't have to go left, right, and find what you need to do. It gives you a very structured approach. You interpret that structured approach and apply that. And that's what this course of roughly 30 hours, 30 to 40 hours, wherein there's not going to be any theory. We're going to implement a live ISMS on a live case study based on my experience from last 25 years. We'll do it with a finance company. We can do it with a bank. We can do it with a startup. It's such a flexible and beautiful framework that you can deploy it on you can deploy it on a single person organization. So if there's a company which is proprietary owned, they can deploy this framework. You don't need 100 people to deploy this framework, right? So other than this, which are the more common popular framework? You have CIS controls, you have COBIT, you have Of course, ISO 27001 is the popular framework. You have NIST CSF, you have NIST SP 853. You have many such frameworks, right? So that's the, just a second. Okay, sorry. So what are we going to do in this course? So what we are going to do in this
Hi,
course is,
Colonel Nahas. So sorry to interrupt. Have you
yeah,
stopped sharing your screen?
I think there's a problem with the screen share.
Yeah.
Just a second. All right. Is it visible now?
Not yet. I think you have to present it again.
Yeah, just a sec. Great. Is it visible now? All right.
Yes, it's an infinity screen right now. Perfect.
Sorry, guys. Technical glitches. Okay, so what we will be doing in this course is basically initially we will, in module one, it's almost a 10 to 12 module course. Uh, I'm personally making it, and I'm putting all my experience into this course right now. And so the module one will be understanding what is the 27001 and what is ISMS, right? Then we'll go to module two, where we will understand the context of the organization. Now, in context of the organization, basically, it's nothing but what is called a business organization analysis. Okay, you analyze the business in detail, what it does, who are the stakeholders, what are the dependencies, what are the laws, regulation, compliances it has to meet, are there any regional requirements, okay, what are the problem statements. So you do a lot of analysis in this, and you come to understand the organization. The aim here is to understand the organization, right? Then you see whether the leadership is committed to the needs of the organization. So that comes from clause 5. How involved is the leadership, right? And that will be our module 3 for our course. Then next is planning. As I told you, PDCA. So planning is clause 6, where we understand what are the risks to an organization. Now, this is one of the most important and my most favorite part of my risk assessment, because this is where most of the students or mentees, they hesitate or they do not understand completely how to analyze a risk, right? So this is where we completely thrash down based on ISO 31000, which is the ISO's risk management framework. We also take help of NIST SP 837. You can do something called quantitative risk assessment and qualitative risk assessment. Okay, so I'll teach you both the risk assessment methodologies, how to carry out qualitative risk assessment and how to carry out quantitative risk assessment. And in most of the organizations, you are going to do hybrid risk assessment, because there are certain risks which you cannot evaluate quantitatively, there are certain risks you cannot evaluate qualitatively, right? Then we have module 5, wherein we see whether the organization supports the implementation of a information security management system. That is clause 7, whether organization has the adequate human resources to implement this framework, audit this framework. Can they train people? Can they retain the documented information which is required mandatorily for ISO 27000? Now, let me please tell you, you don't need to have 200 or 300 documents. You just need 10 to 12 documents. In one policy document, you can cover most of the part, right? Now then you have to, you've planned yourself, and now it is to do. You have to do things, you have to implement the framework. And that is where you implement the framework and see whether, based on your risk, whether you have deployed the controls or not, whether those controls are effective or not. And once you have deployed a control, whether residual risk is something which is acceptable to the organization. Now this is where clause 8 comes into picture. And then clause 9 is, check that everything is going fine. So plan, do, check. This is where you check, and that means you internally audit your systems, that whether implementation has been carried out properly, and whether you can audit your systems for seeing that everything is going fine. Now generally after the audit, what follows is a management review. Okay, so management review confirms that, okay, performance is continuously evaluated by a organization. Now lastly is act. Act means plan, do, check, act. Now lastly, act means whether do you have the capability to go back in time and say, okay, we did this wrong, or we have gaps here, can we do better? So you improve your processes, right? Now if you've seen that I have mentioned the activity in each of my modules, now all the modules are going to be very, very practical. I do not, because framework deployment is like, deploying a framework on a live class. You cannot teach theory. There's nothing, no, yeah, if you were joining my CISSP batch, I would have taught you about communication security. It's a management system. Management systems, it's more about processes. How do you align the processes? What are the techniques and tools which you can use for processes, right? And based on Google Sheets and Excel Sheets and Power BI and Tableau, these are the tools which you can easily use to become a very, very efficient GRC professional. Now once we finish our module 8, we go to the controls, which are the 93 controls mentioned. Now these controls generally cover almost all the requirements of any organization today, to be frank. If you combine this with ISO 27017, then you are done with cloud also, right? So it's good to understand ISO 27001 and in today's environment 27017, because most of the organization are cloud centric, right? So we will do that, wherein we implement deploy controls based on our case studies, our scenarios which we will generate. Now I have included a small module of GRC into this course. I've been propagating GRC for almost now 4 years, and why? It's not that I cannot do VAPT, I cannot do threat hunting. I can do that also, but there are a lot of skilled people, more skilled people than me, who can do better job than me, right? So why to go into an environment where there are already better people than you? So I realized now this is a space where I can call myself a little bit mature. I'm not saying I'm someone very great, but yes, I can do justice to this topic, right? I understand the complete framework management system. And this is where we do one module of how to, develop your GRC base with this framework. This is one of the best frameworks to understand GRC today. And then finally, you have to prepare for the certification audit. Please understand, just implementation is fine, but then organizations who implement generally go for certification audit. I just finished, before this call, I was wrapping up ISO 22301 for my client. Last week, we were doing ISO 27001 for the client. Oh, we did a wonderful job, and there were hardly 2 recommendations and nothing else. So this is where I teach you how to, prepare for the certification audit and how does the audit take place. And then we end this course with a capstone project where we will give you a live situation and you will deploy a complete information security management system framework with your hands, with Excel sheets, okay? And it will be a completely hands-on stuff where there's not going to be any theory. You all will be divided into 2 to 4 groups depending upon the size of the course. We have limited the size of the course to 20. Right? Already, I think 10 or 12 enrollments have already happened. People are waiting for this webinar, and I know there's going to be a rush, like what happened with our CISSP course, right? So we'll end up this with a capstone project, and I can guarantee that once you've done this capstone, what will happen is you will feel ready for any interview. That I can assure you. That you can go and now, you know, go and implement ISO 27001 for any given organization, right? And once you finish this course with us, we give you a globally recognized, accredited uh, exemplar global certification and Protect Academy certified certification both together. Okay, we are gold partners of Exemplar Global, and that's what we are going to give you. It's a very rigid process of going through the course. I was personally interviewed by their board, and then only they gave us a go ahead to launch this course under the name of Exemplar Global. Right. I'm done with today's session, guys. If you have any questions, you can please ask or type it out on the screen, and I would love to take questions. Right. So, do we have any questions? And Ghazal, if you can.
Right. So I am just scouting the LinkedIn feed as well for any questions. I think you've covered everything. So that's why we don't have any questions. But we'll wait another, say, 30 seconds in case there is a lag. And guys, please feel free to drop in your questions on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And Colonel Naha will be answering all of them.
Yeah, Mujahid, compliance. What do you mean by compliance? Is that your
I think
question? Mujahid
Mujahid
wants
was
to
just
ask.
he was just adding to your information security umbrella that compliance
Uh-huh.
also falls under it. So Richard has a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking what are modules 1, 2, and 3?
So module one, two, and three are more of an introduction to information security, how to manage information security, right? It's not aligned to the clauses of the standard. Now, if you look at the standard has clause 1, 2, 3, which is a generic clause. Okay, so those clause are just informational clauses, Richard. In my modules, I cover what is information security, how does the framework alignment takes place, and uh, how to manage information security system for an organization using the framework, right? So, Richard, hi, good to see you, man. After your CISSP batch, I hope your preparation is going well. Mujahid says, can we say once you complete the course with you, we are ready for the job? I can confidently say that yes, I would say yes, you would be ready for a job. Uh, but again, interview taking skills and others are also a very, very important part. I can give you the knowledge, I can make you do the hard work. You can ask Richard. I go very deep in my CISSP training. So I'm going to go deep in this also. You'll get a lot of practical knowledge. I'm not someone who sticks to book. I speak from experience, right? So yes, ready for a job. Yes, of course. You are always ready for a job. You don't need a course to be ready for a job. You can read yourself and be ready for a job. Why do you need my guidance? Yeah, my guidance you need because of I speak from experience, Mujahid, to be frank.
So Mujahid
You're
is
always
also
ready for a job.
mentioning that he's technical. So can a person, being technical, can a person switch to GRC?
Anybody can switch to GRC. We are all GRC specialists. We are all GRC specialists. At our homes, we do risk management every day. Every time we cross our roads, we are doing risk management. Every time we catch that bus, we are doing risk management. Every time we leave our kids to the school, we are doing risk management. So everybody is a risk management professional. What is governance? Governance is laying down the policy. You lay down a policy in the house. You lay down a policy everywhere. You lay down a policy of your kids to be back home before last light. Okay? You should be back by 7. That's a policy. They have to follow it, right? And and then you do the risk management. Why did you put that law? Because after dark you are considered, you're worried that your kid might, something untoward might happen with your kid. That's your risk management mind. And compliance is done by your kid. He comes back by 6. At least my dad. We were the generation where dads used to make hell out of us, right? It was all good stuff. Okay, I don't want to say that. It'll sound like human rights violation today. Okay, our dads were brutes, man. So compliance we have to follow, else we cross the line, we get a punishment. As simple as that. Mujahid, we do risk management every day. Why do you put a lock in your house? When I was in Dubai, I saw people don't put their locks too much. Why? The law is so tough. You don't need to put a lock. Right? That's what. Any placement assistance post this course? Shivali, there's no structured placement assistance. We do not commit to any placement assistance, but I can tell you that yes, we have our network. I will train you to understand everything and make you confident and reach you there. Okay, there are tricks to landing a job. I've seen most of the people just take one CV and just float that CV everywhere. That's not how you apply for a job, right? There's a strategy behind every time. You do not apply to 100 jobs in one go. You selectively apply, create a CV so compelling. You have to put in your time to put in that compelling CV, so that the hiring manager, when he looks at that CV and he says, oh, I want to interview this person, he has written everything that I want. And that making that compelling CV is what I can teach you. As far as placement assistance is concerned, yes, we can help you, but we cannot commit. It's something which I'll not commit. Something which I don't do, I'll not commit. But yes, you can check out on LinkedIn. You type ISO 27001 lead implementer, and there'll be thousands of jobs. Colonel Ashdeep Kaur, Shivali Vadakar, I've taken Colonel Ashdeep Kaur. So in this course, ISO 31027, but no certificate for that. ISO 27001 is the only certifiable framework. You cannot find an organization where you can certify against 31,000 on 27017. So we cannot, nobody can tell that go and get certified for ISO 27017. Those are guidance frameworks. So you take ISO 27001, and these are the family of frameworks where you put in what is applicable to you. You take 31,000 to carry out risk management. They are not certifiable frameworks. These are all guidance frameworks, and therefore ISO 31000 is an enterprise risk management framework. You can apply it on financial risk management, operational risk management, anywhere you want to. Okay. 8 a.m. When will the class begin? Class begins, I think, Sunday, Ghazal, if I'm not wrong, 27th, evening batch.
Correct, sir. Class begins Sunday, Indian afternoon batch, 3 to 6.
India afternoon, so west of India it will be late afternoon. East of India it will be late night, right? So it's good for, I think, in fact, all the time zones, other than probably very extreme east like Japan and other places, who generally don't come for these courses. KV Shyam, sir, how well is ISO 27000 is recommended for someone who has done ITIL Foundation? Very much. ITIL is all about technical controls. It's not about how to manage risks, to be frank. ITIL is about library of controls, right, KV? Oh, KV is back. If he's the same KV who did CISSP and passed CISSP with us, I don't know. So ITIL is a standard library, set of library given by it originates from the British territory, and it's best practices of the managing IT. I think it started from British Army, right? And it took form of international standards. It doesn't talk about risk management too much. It doesn't talk about how to manage compliance. It's a set of best practices for managing your IT. So yes, if you have ITIL, I do recommend for any information security risk professional to understand ITIL, to understand ISO 27001, to understand COBIT, to understand ISACA risk IT framework, get CISM, get CISA, get CISSP, right? So this is your journey, and this you should get within 1 year, 1 to 2 years should be your target. It's a constant upskill today, I'm telling you. Uh, Santosh Lakshmi Narayan says, having 17 years of experience in testing and want to move into ISO, is it possible? Testing of what, Santosh? You are testing controls, control testing? Are you a control assurance manager? May I understand, Santosh? Questions are running. Okay, wait. KV Shyam, yeah. Okay, Shivali, I've done lead auditor. So, Shivali, this is the problem. Industry says, get lead auditor. How can you audit system which you don't know how it works? Can you go and fix a car if you don't know how it works? Can you go and check a car, what's wrong with it, if you don't know how to drive it? So, ISO 27001 LA is of no use unless you know how to implement it. Where are the process gaps going to be? And therefore, I always do not recommend a lead auditor if you have not done ISO 27001 lead implementer. You need to understand how to implement a system, then only can you, audit a system. Right. Next is, how much is the cost of the course? Edit. We don't talk about cost and other things here. You can reach out to our. No, it's not free, of course. We cannot give you a certified certification for free. Bijoy, ISO 31027 as a person we can get certified. No, you cannot get certified. Those are all guidance. Those are all guidance frameworks. You can just read them and implement them. Nobody will stop you. Those are all guidance framework as to how to carry out risk management. So once you are implementing ISO 27001 for an organization, and then you want to do risk management, you pick up ISO 31000 and then use 31000 to do the risk management. Now, if you're considering cloud controls, so you pick up 27017, include cloud controls into set of additional controls. I think there are 14 or 15 additional controls, and then you do it. Many people asked for experience in GRC. So how to put this? Get a GRC level, entry level job. If you don't have experience, you have to get it. I cannot create experience, right, Steven? We can offer you maybe if we have certain client projects, we can offer you some kind of a internship, right? But you have to make your hands dirty, man. Then only can you get
Stephen,
experience.
Stephen
Yeah.
also had a follow up, sir. He's saying
Yeah.
many people come and say it will be practical, but before learning ISO/GRC, what is the prerequisite needed?
See, you should be able to understand what are basic cybersecurity controls. When I say access control, do you understand what is an access control? When I say separation of duties, do you understand what is separation of duties? Right. So you have to understand those things. Now, you cannot manage a framework if you do not have the basic knowledge, right? Yeah, Santosh, anybody can implement a framework. Anybody can do an MBA, right? So, Santosh, your question gets answered, I hope. Anybody can do ISO, if even if you are a, but I guess Steven, you've already done ISO 27001 with us. Your questions are repeat. Yeah, Surendra Kumar Aisetti. Hello, Shubhajit. I have a working banking domain, so I need to switch on technology regarding. Shubhajit, I have a working banking domain. You're working in banking domain, so I need to switch on technology regarding risk management or control governance. So this is, yes, it is. So if you have certain amount of IT experience, right, in the banking domain, ISO is a good framework because it's mandatory for all banks to be ISO 27001 certified. So lead implementer in banks are in great demand, and very few people understand how to implement. You know. Right. Any more questions? Yeah, Stephen, I'm aware of you. I've spoken to you personally, right? Many times. So I'm aware of all your questions. Those are repeat questions for last 2 years. Any other questions, friend? So I'll be happy to take on. Yeah, practical, of course. I can only do practical, to be frank. I don't know theory. You can ask people who are here, who have done courses with me. Richard is here. Richard knows. KV is there. KV has already passed his CISSP. Richard is on the verge of clearing his CISSP, I guess. So yeah, they can vouch for whether I do it practically or not. Right. I do a lot of blackboarding. You must have seen. I do a lot of whiteboarding and blackboarding, and that's what my approach is. All right. So
Um,
see you if
some, so
can
there is
ISO
another.
LI get jobs in compliance too?
Yes.
In Gulf, you have to skill up more. You have to understand the compliances in Gulf. When you say Gulf, which region in Gulf? If you see, UAE is very compliance heavy. Saudi is very compliance heavy. Out of GCC countries, I will say, UAE, Saudi, and Qatar are very compliance heavy. So it's good to have a CISM, CISA, and ISO 27001. Yes, ISO 27001 is in demand in the Gulf region. It is, of course, but you should know how to implement it. Just by getting a certification does not help. You should know how to implement it.
I think he's asking regarding the Dubai region.
Dubai, yes, Dubai, because there are a lot of compliances. You have to understand UAE, PDPL. There is for crypto. There is VARA. So there's which is the best textbook. There's no textbook for a framework, Richard. To be frank, there are few people have written, but I think the best way is to implement the framework to a you know I'll say a imaginary organization where you have worked in your past experiences. You worked in an organization. Take the framework. Uh, Framework is just 10 pages. So no textbook can teach better unless you actually implement. There are few textbooks on the uh, Amazon you will find, but I've not learned from textbook. I've learned from literally implementing it in last 25 years. Is this session recorded? Yes, Paresh, it is recorded. It will be there on our YouTube channel. It will be there on this LinkedIn feed also for as long as LinkedIn is there, hopefully.
Hi, Shivali, I'll take this one. So, when is the last date for enrolling for this course? So, we're already more than halfway full. Colonel Nah has put a very strict cap on this batch for 20 new participants only. So, I would recommend reach out to the number, which is going to be flashing onto the screen in just a moment, and we'll help you set up and help you get started. And Sai Babu is asking, Colonel Naha, is lead
Mhm.
auditor coming from you next?
I will die in case in that case. Yeah, it's coming, but it is coming not from me. It will be coming from a very mature, you know, auditor, a very senior auditor who has actually taught me. I have learned from her, and she's the one who is going to be taking our lead auditor batch very soon. If I take 3 courses, I'll probably die. Okay. So I will give it a pass. I would love to do an auditor course, but I'm more of an implementer, I'll be very honest. I'm more of a, I can break down complex systems into very, very easy to grasp, you know, parts. That's my specialty. Uh, I'm not a good auditor, I must say. So I will not take that responsibility of doing auditor course, right? But yes, a very senior auditor comes, and I've learned from her. She is a very good auditor. Mrs. Anindita will be taking this, and I know she's one of the best, auditors in the country, and I will recommend that in that case. To be frank, to be honest.
All right. So, Karanaha, I don't see any more questions. There was a question in the top
Mhm.
uh, regarding what is technical risk management. So, Pradeep had asked really early on.
Okay, so there are broadly three kinds of risk, right? If you overall see, there are physical risks, there are logical risks, and there's going to be technical risks, right? So physical risks are, of course, anything which can cause you physical harm, right? There will be process risks or logical risks, where there will be process gaps, process outages. You know, you were supposed to take the laptop back from your employee, but the guy who was supposed to take the laptop is on leave. So the employee goes away with the laptop and he's offboarded from your organization. Well, that's a risk. Okay, so that's an administrative risk, right? And process breakages, right? And then you have technical risk. Firewall firmware was to be upgraded, you did not upgrade it. The process behind change management, configuration management is not taken care of. Those will lead to technical risks, right? So there's a clear demarcation of physical risks, administrative risks, and technical risks. Okay, generally, risk management professionals will divide. If I'm in finance, I will do it in the same way: physical risks, administrative risks, financial risks. uh, in infosec, I will say physical risks, uh, then administrative risks, and technical risk. I did ISO 27000 and 2000. Am I eligible? Oh, you can do anything anytime. For ISO 27001, there is no requirement. Huh? There's no requirement or no laid down. It's a, please understand, ISO 27001 is a open standard. There are no restrictions whether you are from science background, tech background, commerce background. I'm sorry. Okay. As long as you understand the controls, that is the only technical part, to be frank. Right. So it's not a, it's not an exam centric certification, Bijoy. It's more of understanding how to pick that framework and applying it. You know, that's more important, and that's what I'll do. I'm going to. There will be no slides, to be frank. The slides are there, of course. Slides are required for assistance, but then it will be all. I'll give you scenarios. Okay, I can show you the slides. I think I made it. So it's all scenario based. You know, there's a lot of scenarios going to be there. So I'm building the course, and I'll be finishing building the course by tomorrow, because I do it based on practical experience and not theoretical experiences. Right. Thank you, Cash. Thank you for your honorable comment. I hope you liked it. Aim is to teach, support people, and grow in your careers. That's it. So let's call it a show, and then go off to sleep. Right. I hope you all liked it. And if you want to join the course, this is the number. You can reach out reach out at, can we learn TPRM without ISO 27001 LI? Ravindra, there is no benchmark for TPRM with ISO 27000. TPRM is all about third party risks. Do you understand what are your third party risks? So it's got no direct one-on-one relationship with ISO 27001. Uh, TPRM is more about resilience. If you look at resilience frameworks, DORA, SEBI, CRF, they're all resilience frameworks, and their third-party risk, supply chain risks come from. So you don't need to, but it's good to have ISO 27001. Then there's always a progression chart. So if I'm progressing in my career, So I'll say, okay, let me do ISO 27000. Now I've understood. Then I say, okay, let me audit it. And then I say, okay, TPRM and supply chain risk are on the rise. Then I do something on that part. So yeah, that's what it is about, right? So ISO 27001 you can use to identify any risk, and then you know how to control that risk. That's the aim, right? Okay, guys, 1 hour is over, and those of you who want to do the course with us, right? These are uh, our counselor's number, and you can mail us on the same. Okay, see you, and thank you so much. Thanks, Richard. Good to see you back.